And so we press on. Today we are going to read Island of the Blue Dolphins, chapters 24 and 25. So, again, two pretty short chapters. So, real quick review. Khurana made a friend with Tutok. The girls spent a lot of time together. And so Khurana and Tutok became friends, but Tutok left and Khurana was all alone again. Khurana found an injured otter and she cared for the otter and she fed him fish every day. But eventually the otter left also. Khurana made some earrings that would match the necklace that Tutok gave her. She made herself some earrings, and sometimes she would walk along the beach in her beautiful cormorant skirt with the feathers and her necklace and her earrings. She's just trying to be happy and satisfied. All right, so chapter 24. Spring again was a time of flowers, and water ran in the ravines and flowed down to the sea. Many birds came back to the island. Tainor and Lure, if you don't remember, those are the birds that Khurana caught and turned into pets. Tainor and Lure built a nest in the tree where they were born. They built it of dry seaweed and leaves, and also with hairs off of Rantu's back. Whenever he was in the yard while it was being made, they would swoop down as if he were not looking and snatch a beakful of fur and fly away. This he did not like, and he finally hid from them until the nest was finished. I had been right in giving a girl's name to Lure, for she laid speckled eggs, and with some help from her mate, hatched two ugly fledglings, which soon became beautiful. I made up names for them and clipped their wings, and before long they were as tame as their parents. I also found a young gull that had fallen from its nest to the beach below. Gulls make their nests high on the cliffs, in hollow places on the rocks. These places are usually small, and often I had watched a young one teetering on the edge of the nest and wondered why it did not fall. They seldom did. This one, which was white with a yellow beak, was not badly hurt, but he had broken a leg, so I took him back to the house and bound the bones together with two small sticks and sinew. For a while, they did not try to walk. Then, because he was not old enough to fly, he began to hobble around the yard. With the young birds and the old ones, the white gull and Rantu, who was always trotting at my heels, the yard seemed a happy place. If only I had not remembered to talk. If only I had not wondered about my sister Ulape, where she was, and if the mark she had drawn upon her cheek had proved magical. If they had, she was now married to Kimki and was the mother of many children. She would have smiled to see all of mine, which were so different from the ones I had always wished to have. That's an interesting sentence. What children does Khurana have? She says she, Ulape, her sister, would have smiled to see all of mine, all of my children, which were so different from the ones I had always wished to have. What children does Khurana have? Interesting. Think about that. Early that spring, I started to gather abalones, and I gathered many, taking them to the headland to dry. I wanted to have a good supply ready if the Aleuts came again. One day, when I was on the reef filling my canoe, I saw a herd of otter in the kelp nearby. They were chasing each other, putting their heads through the kelp and then going under and coming up again in a different place. It was like a game we used to play in the brush when there were children on the island. I looked for Monami, but each of them was like the other. I filled my canoe with abalone and paddled towards shore, one of the otter following me. As I stopped, he dived and came up in front of me. He was far away, yet even then I knew who it was. I never thought I would be able to tell him from the others, but I was so sure it was Monane that I held up one of the fish I had caught. Otter swam very fast, and before I could take a breath, he had snatched it from my hand. For 2 moons I did not see him, and then one morning while I was fishing, he came suddenly out of the kelp. Behind him were 2 baby otter. They were about the size of puppies, and they moved along so slowly that from time to time Monami had to urge them on. Sea otter cannot swim when they are first born, and they have to hold on to their mother. Little by little, she teaches her babies by brushing them away with her flippers, then swimming around them in circles until they learn to follow. Monami came close to the reef, and I threw a fish into the water. He did not snatch it as he usually did, but waited to see what the younger otter would do. When they seemed more interested in me than in food, and the fish started to swim away, he seized it with his sharp teeth and tossed it in front of them. I threw another fish into the water for Monami, but he did the same things as before. Still, the babies would not take the food, and at last, tired of playing with it, swam over and began to nuzzle him. Only then did I know that Monami was their mother. Otter mate for life, and if the mother dies, the father will often raise the babies as best he can. This is what I had thought happened to Monami. I looked down at the little family swimming beside the reef. Monami, I said, I'm going to give you a new name. It is Wanani, which fits you because it means a girl with large eyes. What happened? Khurana thought the boy otter was a boy, but it turned out it was really a girl otter. And Monani was a mom, so she switched the name. The young otter grew fast and soon were taking fish from my hand. But Wanani liked abalones better. She would let the abalones I tossed to her sink to the bottom and then dive and come up holding it against her body, with a rock held in her mouth. Then she would float on her back and put the abalone on her breast and strike it again and again with the rock until the shell was broken. She taught her young to do this, and sometimes I sat on the reef all the morning and watched the 3 of them pounding the hard shells against their breasts. If all otters did not eat abalones this way, I would have thought it was a game played by Wanani just to please me. But they all did, and I always wondered about it, and I wonder to this time. After that summer, after being friends with Wanani and her young, I never killed another otter. I had an otter cape for my shoulders, which I used until it wore out, but never again did I make a new one. Nor did I ever kill another cormorant for its beautiful feathers, though they have long, thin necks and make ugly sounds when they talk to each other. Nor did I kill seals for their sinews, using instead kelp to bind the things that needed it. Nor did I kill another wild dog. Nor did I try to spear another sea elephant. Ulape would have laughed at me, and others would have laughed too, my father most of all. Yet this is the way I felt about the animals who had become my friends, and those who were not, but in time could be. If Ulape and my father had come back and laughed, and all the others came back and laughed, still I would have felt the same way. For animals and birds are like people too, though they do not talk the same or do the same things. Without them, the earth would be an unhappy place. All right, so Khurana, Khurana has her tame birds. Tame means they're friendly, and they're not scared of humans. And it says, Ulape was the mother of many children. She would have smiled to see all of mine. So who are her children? She's got Rontu the dog. She's got Wanane, the otter. She has her birds. Those are kind of like her children. To mate for life, it's kind of like they get married forever. So they stay together. All right, so he would sink down. The otters would go under the surface of the water and dive to jump into the water. And then the otter cape, which these are very, very fancy versions. But so of course we got like the cape, like Superman's cape, but it's kind of like half of a coat, but made of otter, which would be very soft and warm. But it's interesting because Khurana says, you know what? The birds are my friends. The otter are my friends. The dogs are my friends now. I can't kill any of my friends. So she says she's not going to kill any animals, even though that's such an important part so many ways. You know, she used the elephant seal tooth for a spear. She could use the otter skins for a coat, but she says she's not going to do it. This is all she has now. Kind of interesting. All right, we're going to move on to chapter 25. So, the Aleuts never came again to the island of the Blue Dolphins. But every summer I watched for them, and early every spring I gathered shellfish, which I dried and stored in the cave where I kept my canoe. 2 winters after they left, I made more weapons, a spear, a bow, and a quiver of arrows. These I also stored in the place beneath the headland. So if the hunters returned, I would be ready to go to another part of the island, to move from cave to cave, living in my canoe if necessary. For many summers after the Aleuts had gone, the herd of otter left Coral Cove. The old otter, which had survived the Aleut spears, and by now were aware that summer was a time of danger, would lead the herd away. They went far off to the kelp beds of tall rock, where they stayed until the first storms of winter. Often Rantu and I would go out to the rock and live there for several days, catching fish for Wanane and the others I had come to know. One summer, the otter did not leave, the summer that Rantu died. Ugh! What? Ugh! One summer, the otter did not leave, the summer that Rantu died. And I knew then that none of the otter who remembered the hunters were left. Nor did I think of them often, nor of the white men who had said they would come back, but did not come. So what this paragraph does is very important. It tells us that for Khurana, so much time is passing. The animals don't remember because the generations of animals have passed. Rantu died. She doesn't even think about the Aleuts anymore. And she hardly ever thinks about her people who said they would come back but never did. So much time has passed. All right, let's continue. Until that summer, I had kept count of all the moons since the time my brother and I were alone upon the island. For each one that came and went, I cut a mark in a pole beside the door of my house. There were many marks from the roof to the floor, but after that summer, I did not count them anymore, did not cut them anymore. The passing of the moons now had come to mean little, and I only made marks to count the 4 seasons of the year. The last year, I did not count those. So months and months and years, so many have passed, in fact, that she stopped counting. It was late in the summer that Rantu died. The days since spring, whenever I went to the reef to fish, he would not go with me unless I urged him to. He liked to lie in the sun in front of the house, and I let him, but I did not go so often as in the past. I remember the night that Rantu stood at the fence and barked for me to let him out. Usually he did this when the moon was big and he came back in the morning. But that night there was no moon. He did not return. I waited all that day for him until almost dusk, and then I went out to look for him. I saw his tracks and followed them over the dunes and a hill to the lair where he had once lived. There I found him lying in the back of the cave alone. At first I thought he'd been hurt, yet there were no wounds on him. He touched my hand with his tongue, but only once, and then he was quiet and scarcely breathed. Since night had fallen, and it was too dark for me to carry Rantu back, I stayed there. I sat beside him through the night and talked to him. At dawn, I took him in my arms and left the cave. He was very light, as if something about him had already gone. The sun was up as I went along the cliff. Gulls were crying in the sky. He raised his ears at the sound, and I put him down, thinking that he wished to bark at them, as he always did. He raised his head and followed them with his eyes, but did not make a sound. Rontu, I said, you have always liked to bark at the seagulls. Whole mornings and afternoon you have barked at them. Bark for them now, for me. But he did not look at them again. Slowly he walked to where I was standing and fell at my feet. I put my hand on his chest. I could feel his heart beating, but it beat only twice, very slowly, loud and hollow like the waves on the beach, and then no more. Rontu! I cried. Oh, Rontu! I buried him on the headland. I dug a hole in the crevice of the rock, digging for 2 days from dawn until going down of the sun, and put him there with some sand, flowers, and a stick he liked to chase when I threw it, and covered him with pebbles of many colors that I gathered on the shore. Khurana has now been there for many, many years. Yeah, makes me want to cry too. The summer that Rontu died. So that's one of those verbal cues, those phrases that tell us something happened. She says it almost like it's no big deal. She goes, oh, in my memory, that was the summer that Rontu died, because she's telling this all after the fact. Dusk is the end of day when the sun is going down, so she would work all day long. And then, of course, when we think of like a grave, and of course this is for a person, but all the pebbles, these tiny little rocks here, she would find all these special colored rocks and put them around on the grave for her friend Rontu. I don't know what to tell you guys. That is a sad chapter. We have just a few left, so maybe there will be a happy ending for Khurana. Maybe. But, all right. Let me go ahead and summarize real quick, because then you can do your own summary. So, in these chapters, what happened? Khurana, let's see here. I'm going to have to remind myself. Let's see here. Khurana has all of the animals. She's like she's made herself a little family on the island. And when she goes out on the canoe, she feeds the otter and she feeds the family there. She decides she can no longer kill animals because they are important to her in new and special ways. They've become her only family and friends. And speaking of friend, Rontu has now died. So Khurana is alone on this island, and Rontu is dead. And it has been long, long, long time, and nobody has come to take her home. Okay. All right, you guys. That's all for now. Bye.